Hey guys, and welcome to Conversing with Creators. I am your guest host, Cameron Morris from Man on Fire Films, and I'm here today in place of Jon Johnsick because today I am reviewing indie creator, comic book writer, Jon Johnsick. Say hello, Jon.
Hey, this is interesting. So this is what it feels like to be on the other end.
Yeah, man, this is really meta. We basically came up with this idea. I thought it would be fun that when Jon's book finally did come out, I would do a Conversing Creators with him as the guest, because you'd finally, someone you could show your work and you're like, I am a creator now.
Yeah, I feel like it's been so long since the book was announced as something that, oh, hey, guys, I'm doing a comic book, to actual release date.
And I think that we have a lot to talk about in terms of that, especially like production of comics and how we think that we think it takes a lot faster than it actually does, and how grueling of a process is. But before we get to all that stuff, I want to ask you, Jon, did you ever think you would be a published writer in any way?
I thought I was going to write books.
Yeah.
Yeah, when I was a kid, my first ever thing I ever did, which I've told the story 20 million times, but I just find it funny, was Pikachu Goes to the Future, which was actually a comic book. I had some writing. It was basically like I'd have a picture and then there was a caption, like a sentence or two underneath the picture that explained what was happening.
Yeah, so like the books you would read when you were that age.
Yeah, and so basically, Pikachu's shit gets stolen. He goes to the future, gets it, comes back. But after that, but then I didn't know about trademarks back then. So I probably can't publish it.
You self-published it on the playgrounds.
I made some bank. But yeah, after that, as I grew, I started reading more, more novels and stuff, and I got really into this the Redwall series. It's by this I think it's British writer named Brian Jakes.
Okay.
It's a really I love it. It's about these anthropomorphic animals who have live in this fantasy kingdom, and it's so good. But and so I always wanted to write just novels.
Yeah.
And I did a lot of started something, didn't finish it. The longest thing I ever did was when I lived in Japan.
Oh my god! I don't think have we talked about this on this channel?
Yeah. I think I don't know, but basically I lived in Japan for 2.5 years.
Damn.
Because my dad was in the Navy and he got stationed there, so that was fun. That's why I'm so cultured,
So you moved to Japan and you decide you want to start writing again.
Yeah, I want to start writing hardcore, because around that time Kingdom Hearts 2 came out. And that is my favorite game of all time.
You share that in common with Jack Morris of Man on Fire Films, actually.
He loves Kingdom Hearts 2 also?
Yeah, he loves all the Kingdom Hearts.
Oh, they're so good. But so I had a best friend named Marion, who's this Filipino kid. And we basically I would write it. One of the characters based off of him. And it was this really bad Kingdom Hearts ripoff about these kids in London. It was called London Fury.
Okay.
And there's this assassin called the Crow. He could summon black evil crows and stuff. He looked a lot like a Naruto character.
He's doing jutsus all over the place.
Yeah, he had these giant claw gauntlets on. So he attacks Rich, who's the main character. Short for Richard, because I'm clever.
Was the main character well off money wise?
No, he was poor.
So it was an ironic name.
Yeah. I didn't even think of that back then. I wasn't that clever. So he attacks Rich for some reason, and Rich, I gave him the shittiest power in the world.
Even then, you knew not to give the main character the best power in the world. Even then, you knew something that a lot of anime writers didn't know.
It's just thinking back to it, he's just he could summon this wooden pole. Like, kind of like a bow staff, like Donatello.
Okay.
Like, that was his, like, it was like his keyblade. He could just kind of, like, make it come out of thin air. And, like, for some reason, I guess I thought that was, like, super cool. I was like, oh, yeah, he has, like, this wooden staff, and he, like, I don't know.
So by then you knew you can't straight rip off the keys, but you did want to do something that he summoned.
Yeah. They were called Furies, and the book goes in, and, like, each character kind of, like, gets a Fury, and it's basically, like, if you get to the brink of death and you survive, everyone inside of them has this power called a Fury.
Okay.
And the Crow was a part of this giant cult that was trying to get people and steal Furies, basically. If you kill somebody, you can steal their Fury. And the Crow is kind of a manipulative bastard, so he joins Rich and his friends, and they fight the cult and try to, save the day or some bullshit. I love how confident I am in my own story. I'm like talking crap about it the entire time.
So you write this in Japan, and does it ever go anywhere? Do you guys finish the book?
I feel like we finished like a draft or two of it, and but it was kind of a story that I wrote and also a game that we played.
Yeah.
So we would act it out, and we would just have fun and do it too.
Yeah. So it would be like role playing and
it was like a role playing game without any pieces or anything like that. It was just us like pretending like I had a bow staff and like
it's like the kid version of brainstorming a story.
Yeah.
Instead of like writing it down and like seeing where all the people can go, you just be like, let's just act it out.
Yeah.
So after you write this, at some point I assume you move back to America.
Yeah. We moved. My dad retired from the Navy.
Yeah.
And so they decided to move to Opelika, Alabama.
Ah, the South.
The South. Yeah, I don't know. They have their reasons for moving here. I was like, I don't know why, but it was kind of the best decision for me for my life because obviously I met my wife and all this stuff, so that's awesome. So
when you moved back to America, and what's the next like big thing you attempt to write or do right?
I think I got like really depressed.
Okay.
For a little while, about like because that was 8th grade for me. So I basically came to a new school at the end of middle school.
Okay.
So when everyone had kind of grown up and taken classes together, I just became the new kid at the last year of that school.
Do you know what year that was then?
That would be let's see. I graduated senior year 2013. So about 2009, I think.
Okay, so this is around about the time. I don't want to push myself into this episode, but this is around about the time we meet.
I think a little bit. I think maybe 2008.
Oh wait, is that okay?
Because when we met, I was in high school.
Ah, okay.
I was probably ninth grade, probably. So
yeah,
I think it's about 2008. But I was super depressed because I moved from Japan, where all my friends were, to the South, which is complete culture shock.
Yeah.
So I wasn't really writing or doing a lot. But I did start picking up a certain book that we bonded over, Geoff Johns' Green Lantern.
Geoff Johns' Green Lantern was a huge influence on both of us. And I know this episode's about you, but a lot of people read Geoff Johns' Green Lantern, and I think it affected people in a way that was like, this is stuff that it's hard. It's like a lot of sci-fi and a lot of crazy stuff, but it is one of the most human stories as well.
Yeah,
and the dialogue captures your imagination, where it's like, oh, this is how I talk with my friends sometimes.
Yeah.
You know?
See, before that, I'd really like in Japan, I would kind of pick up issues here and there of comics. Not really. I picked up some Wally West Flash and some Robin and Nightwing, but I really read the Archie comic Sonic the Hedgehog. Okay. I love the Archie Sonic. I still read it now. It's really good, and that's the only reason I like the character, because the video games suck now. Just be honest, there hasn't been a good Sonic the Hedgehog video game in a while.
Well, I will say that I love Sonic the Hedgehog, but I haven't played past number 1, so
yeah.
I've still got number 1 from the arcade version downloaded to my PS3.
Nice. See, I have this whole canon that I know of from the comics, and so like when people, I'm just like, man, oh god, I wish the video games would take some of it because it's so rich and it does a lot.
Yeah.
But yeah. So by Jeff Johns' Green Lantern time, I started getting into comics. I started going on YouTube and watching, Brown Coat Eric, The Real Manos. I didn't find out about Geekvolution until a little bit later.
Yeah, same. It's weird. Like the Brown Coat Eric was, especially around 08, 09, he was kind of the guy on YouTube to talk about comics, which always made me laugh because like Geekvolution, not to put Eric down or anything, but Geekvolution was putting in so much effort and they were putting in so much video production.
Well, Eric would just turn on the camera or turn on the microphone, just like, "Hey guys, so today..."
And it was like this thing where he's just like he felt so human.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people either got into comics or got even deeper into comics because they were like, this guy is just like anyone else. He just likes reading comics and he just likes voicing his opinion.
Steve and Dustin also, who haven't been doing videos as much lately, but those guys I started talking to and kind of like doing stuff with.
So that's Steve Baxi and...
Yeah, Steve Baxi and Dustin Wallane.
Yeah,
Dukaloops. Yeah, Dukaloops. And so about around that time I started making videos. And they're very embarrassing. Especially those older videos. I was really like, I was young. It was 5 years ago, 4 or 5 years ago.
Yeah,
no, 5 years ago.
I think that was the whole thing, though. I think the best thing about the comics reviewers on YouTube, as opposed to everyone else, is there were so many big comic book YouTubers that just didn't put much effort in. It kind of invited everyone to do their own videos.
Yeah, it's like anyone can do it. You could just flip your webcam on and grab a comic and talk about how much you like it or hate it.
Yeah, definitely. So you're doing the videos, and are they all reviews, or are you doing other videos?
They're mostly reviews. I did play around with doing some weird stuff. I did some stuff I had this penguin stuffed animal. So I had this whole bit where this penguin was like this evil genius, and he was reviewing comics, and he had like this manservant who were the hands, who were my hands. And it was kind of funny because I didn't want to do... For a while, I didn't feel like doing my face on camera.
Yeah.
Because I was self-conscious or whatever bullshit. And so I was doing that, and then I started doing videos with myself, and I started playing around with, like, just doing weird skits.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about your sketches, because this is mainly going to be about comics, but you did create a couple sketches. I mean, most of them were comic book themed, because that was the audience of your channel. But what inspired you to be like, today I'm going to film a sketch about breaking up with the Marvel industry?
Yeah, so basically, like, I'd been getting upset about... So around that time, this was 09, 09-ish. So if you've been following comics, if you're watching this and you haven't been following comics, that's awesome. Hey, cool. How you doing? But I expect most of the people who watch this like comic books.
Yeah.
So around that time, we had One More Day, and Marvel was really getting into event fatigue.
Yeah.
We had Dark Reign was going on. Spider-Man, his identity was everywhere. Norman Osborn had taken over the Marvel Universe. And it was really kind of tiring to be a Marvel Comics fan. Yeah,
so I remember the one thing that put me off was, like, if you didn't read all books, you were confused.
Yeah, basically. And around that time, the Punisher was dead, I think. He was Franken-Punisher. Frankencastle.
Oh my God.
Which I kind of love the idea. I love it. I was a defender of Frankencastle. Because I was like, what has Punisher been doing? He runs around with an AK-47. Why don't we do something interesting with him? And it was Rick Remender, who I didn't even read at that time.
Yeah.
Now I'm a Remender buff fan, whatever. But so I basically did this kind of skit where I got a phone call on my phone, and it was Marvel, and I just told Marvel, hey, I'm done. Around that time, DC was putting out. We had Grant Morrison on Batman, Jeff Johns on Green Lantern. They were doing some of the best work.
Yeah, we had Blackest Night, which was one of the best events.
Blackest Night, which I hold up as probably one of my favorite events I've ever read.
Yeah.
Even rereading it, it's fun. It's not like the greatest thing in the world, but it was good if you were a Green Lantern fan, because you've been reading and building up to it.
Yeah.
If you've been doing it, then it was just kind of fell out of nowhere.
I also think that the best thing about Blackest Night, which I think John's grasped this idea that a lot of people who write events don't. Whereas Blackest Night did something new, did something really new and combined all the heroes, but it also paid homage to all the universe that had come before. Like when he was raising all the dead people, it wasn't just, oh, these are the dead people that died in recent issues. It was like, oh, look at this guy that no one remembers except for one fan. Like when they brought back, I think it was Elongated Man's wife.
Yeah.
I was like, oh shit. I was like, that's so cool.
And it really did kind of spice up it also started Brightest Day, which we can debate whether or not that was a good idea.
Yeah.
I like the Green Lantern Brightest Day stuff.
Yeah.
Because it was just Jeff Johns' Green Lantern. But Brightest Day itself, I kind of read it. It was a little weird. For some reason, Martian Manhunter becomes like an Earth spirit, and the Hawk family becomes like air spirits, and it's really weird. And Swamp Thing is like the main character.
Yeah, and you have that line that either you love or you hate, where like Batman knows that dead man's there, and he's like, "How do you know I'm there? I'm a ghost," and he's just like, "Because I'm Batman."
Yeah. And it's just like, all right, cool, whatever. Yeah. But yeah, so how do we even?
Sorry. We got so you wanted to do a sketch other than a opinion video on this, because what I really wanted to capture with this question was like, why did you choose a comedic sketch? Because I know you now, you're a funny guy, but then it felt a bit like, whoa, I've never seen this side of this guy. You know, he just usually does reviews. I
think I was getting more comfortable. I was getting more, because obviously the internet is now my home. The internet is my baby. I love it. I think I was getting more comfortable with myself, more comfortable with the internet as in general, and more comfortable. And I think I was kind of realizing I can just kind of do whatever I want.
Yeah.
I didn't really have any haters. I didn't really have a shit ton of like supporters either. It was just like I had a couple guys who liked my stuff. So it was like, okay, I'm just going to do whatever I want. And these guys kind of like seeing me do whatever I want.
Yeah. So you decided to write and perform a comedic sketch. Now, I know...
You say it was like 2 seconds. I was like, hey, this would be funny. And then I did it. Like,
I know, but it can't... When I saw it, it captured my imagination, because it was like... It was something that not a lot of people did. You know, I hadn't seen Geek Evolution by that point. So all I was watching was Manos and Browncoat Eric. And I was like, these guys just talk about comics, which is fine. But it was like everyone was oversaturated with that, you know. I was just talking about comics just like Browncoat Eric. I was doing other videos on another channel, but I never thought to bring that over to the comic book stuff. So, and I know now that you went into two different paths, which is a writer and an actor. So I'm trying to see kind of the origins of both those things.
Yeah. My YouTube channel was definitely the beginning of me also just trying to do more of that stuff, because acting and writing, they're both things that I love. And the YouTube channel was kind of me exploring my, like, kind of just doing weird shit, me being kind of acting more, doing different characters. And I remember, like, that Marvel video was probably, like, back then, probably still now even, one of the kind of popular videos.
Yeah.
That kind of, like, a lot of people talked about.
Yeah, a lot of people talked about, because it was expressing an opinion that a lot of people were doing, that Marvel isn't exactly
but
where
doing
they should
it in a different way.
Yeah, and it was doing it in a shareable way as well, which I think really comes across in your writing now. It's interesting to go back and see, like, you came up with a way to do it that was funny and shareable, in the same way that some of your comics now that I've read and the public will read.
Some of the public have already read.
Yeah, that are like, hey, this is cool because they do it in an interesting way, you know, or in a funny way and stuff like that. So let's move past YouTube now. So you do YouTube for a couple of
do it on. It starts to become on and off, but like in the beginning, I was really kind of like doing it. I did a lot of like, oh, this is a random news piece, I'm going to talk about it.
Yeah.
It kind of became just reviews.
Yeah.
For a while, and then when that happened, that's when the videos started getting spaced apart, because I'm not rich. I can't just buy comics whenever I want. Yeah. So it was like whenever I got a comic, it's like, okay, now I'm going to do a review.
Yeah, and I think around about that time, I mean, it was going into your late teenage
Yeah, that was getting into like, I want to say like probably sophomore and junior, probably more junior year when I started. That was when I started doing theater.
Yeah.
And I did try doing some vlog style videos, but those didn't really, no one really like kind of watched those that much.
Yeah, and I think that when you come around that age, especially like as a YouTube creator, you see a lot of people drop off YouTube.
Yeah.
Because just personal stuff gets in the way. You're finding yourself, and a lot of people meet their significant others, such as you did. So it kind of influences your decision. You're like, do I upload a video to YouTube, or do I focus on my personal life?
Yeah. The great thing about my personal life is that I have an extremely supportive and kind of really weird wife.
Yeah.
And she was in some of those videos. We did some weird videos, which I don't regret because it was fun.
Yeah.
She was my camera person sometimes.
Yeah.
And it was a lot of fun because it was something I could share that with her. And she doesn't like love that stuff, but she likes a lot of it. I mean, she likes Smallville. That's one of her favorite shows. And she loves Lois Lane. And I got her, like, I just go, hey, read this book, read this book, read this book.
Yeah.
After a while, she's like, hey, I'm going to read my own shit. All right. All right. Let me read my books, and then I'll get to yours.
So you're in the midst of this YouTube thing. You're in a relationship with the woman who becomes your wife, and you decide to read. I know where we're going here. I apologize to the viewers.
He knows my life. I'm sorry, guys. He literally knows day by day.
You decide to read a fellow YouTuber's book called The Red Knight. Now, how did this influence you?
Oh, God, I'm gonna get like the Red Knight. Literally, Justin and Joseph Cristelli, if you don't know, The Real Manos, was a YouTube channel that I followed from like way back. And so I started watching it, and he was talking about how he was doing more writing. He'd done, I think he'd already done Caprice.
Yeah.
Which I've read, which I like, but it was Red Knight that got me. So he wrote a book called The Red Knight, Knight Without a Sword.
Yeah.
Basically, he'd wanted to do a comic book, but he thought it'd be easier just to do a pulp novel. He did that. I bought it for like $5. Like, it was really cheap.
Yeah.
And I read it, and I was like, so wait, people can do this?
Yeah.
You can write, and you can upload it to a website and publish it?
Just by yourself.
Yeah, just by yourself. So I was just like, okay. Great, so I'm gonna, because by then I'd kind of been writing off and on and kind of gotten back into it.
Yeah.
But it was that really was like, hey, I can do this.
Yeah.
And that is how the infamous Captain Denny Decatur Book 1 came about.
So this is kind of where creatively our paths cross. This is where I first start really knowing you as a writer.
It was a little bit before where we kind of knew each other. You'd comment on my videos, I'd comment back. We kind of had a little rapport. But this was when we like started actually communicating and talking to each other.
Because it was the thing. It was like I knew about Night with a Sword. I knew about Caprice. I'd watched Manos' videos, but it was kind of like surreal to me. I was like, self-publishing. I don't really know. And plus, my significant other Jen, she was into writing, but she'd never tried to self-publish. That wasn't a thing that she knew about. So it seemed weird to me that like the only writer I know hasn't done it. Why would anyone do it? And then I saw that you were doing it, and I was close to you, so I was like, let me just figure out what this is all about. So I was like, hey John, like what are you doing? He like, I'm writing this book. It's gonna be crazy. It's about a police officer who's kind of a superhero. So why don't you tell us a little bit about the book that you were writing, Denny Decatur?
Yeah. So this book was. It was a time when it was my first ever thing doing everything, so I was kind of like, oh my god, I gotta write it and I gotta do it.
Yeah.
So the book kind of came about. I don't even know where I got the idea from. I've always kind of thought electricity is a really cool power, and I was like, oh, wouldn't it be cool if there was a cop who had superpowers, but instead of becoming a superhero, just stayed a cop?
Yeah.
And so this is kind of, the book is basically about Denny Decatur, who's a captain. I Wikipedia'd ranks and stuff in police police ranks and all that stuff to try and figure out what he should be and what a captain is. And so basically he's kind of this like trash talking, smack talking, kind of he's the cream of the crop. He's the shit at Newbury Police Department.
Yeah.
You know, everyone knows him. When he walks in, confetti flies, and they're like, "Denny!" Which is kind of a joke about the book is that like everyone loves him.
Yeah.
But he's kind of an asshole.
Okay.
In that like to his enemies, like he's very much a jerk.
Yeah, it felt very spoilers. I read it. It felt very
spoilers. He's the one person who read it. All right.
It felt very like Spider-Man-esque in the way that like he dealt with his he dealt with his villains in a jokey kind of fashion, in kind of like a mocky way. He also had kind of like personal issues too, kind of the same way. He was really just Green Lantern. I mean, honestly, he probably was Hal Jordan. He has the same kind of issues. So basically, the Indicator, you know, he's fighting villains. There's this conglomerate kind of like kingpin type character called Felicia Fenmore. He's trying to take her down. We meet H2O, who is Denny's best friend, who is a villain, who was he was kind of he had gambling issues, so he stole from a bank once and got arrested. Yeah.
And so, but that book, I love it. I think I was doing a lot of interesting stuff at that time.
Yeah.
With the book, with the characters, I really dig everything I did with it. But the joke of the book is that, so this is the first time I'd ever self-published.
It was the first time you published anything.
First time I'd ever published anything, and first time I ever ran into what we in the business call production issues.
So tell the audience what happened that fateful day when Denny Decatur was released onto the world, and me and a couple other people bought the book. So,
basically, Lulu.com is the website I used.
Yeah.
Basically, when you use Lulu, they have a minimum page count. I did not know this. So I wrote, you know, kind of like a small, because it was a little pulp novel.
It was supposed to be like episodic.
Yeah, it's supposed to be kind of a short thing, so it's about like 20, maybe 40 pages. So I submit it. Lulu, what they do not tell you if it's not enough pages. What they do is they go until the pages run out, and then they just recopy and repaste. So the book became like 4 or 5 chapters, and then start over 4 or 5 chapters again.
I think I got 3 copies of the book with one purchase, which I'm not complaining about because I got 3 for 1, and that's a good deal.
So I after when I figured that out, I rewrote and I fixed it and I re-showed it. Except I get too excited. It was my first ever published book, so I did not send it to my lovely editor, who is my wife, obviously. She copy edits everything I do. Yeah. So I didn't send it to her. I just went to Lulu.
And it was kind of like a desperate situation. It was like, oh, these people, you know, they got the wrong copy, so I want to get them out the best copy as possible.
Yeah, and so I submitted it. And even like looking back on it, there's some things I changed. It's not horrible. It's just like, it was just funny. It was a learning experience for me, and it was just kind of fun.
Yeah, if I was to say anything about the book, I would say like you said, it had a lot of good ideas, and the dialogue, I think, is something that you've always excelled at. You know, some things come naturally, and some things you have to work at as a writer. And I think one of the things that you do really well is really relatable and comedic dialogue. You know, the dialogue like we talked about in other stuff, where it's like you feel like that's the way you talk with your friends, or that's the way you want to talk with your friends. But I think that the Denny Decatur was like, you just got very excited, as we all do, but unlike most people, you had like a place to publish it. So you got really excited, you wrote all this down, and it was really good, but it kind of lacked a bit of structure and aim.
It needed someone to go, hey, let's just look at this, and let's just point it in a direction.
Yeah.
It didn't really have a direction. It was kind of like
that's probably the best way to describe it.
It was like a bunch of short stories almost.
I know, and I think it was a good start. And oh, you're right there.
Sorry. Yeah, no, sorry. I just
never had a guest to sneeze and die on an episode. It literally said you hit your desk. So I think it was a really good experience for you and for me as a future kind of editor of yours. I don't know, full-time editor, but I do look at some of your stuff.
He's my Welsh editor.
Yeah, I'm your international editor.
Yeah.
And I do think that it was a good experience because it showed people and yourself what you're good at and what you needed improvement on.
Yeah, it reaffirmed me because I got to do it and then go, oh, hey, I'm not actually that bad.
Yeah.
And so I got confidence in my writing, and I also learned, hey, you need to take it slow a little bit, and you need to, you can't just rush into things.
So after this book, we continue the YouTube thing. I think we become a bit...
We become closer.
Yeah.
I think really, it's probably like maybe 2011. Probably 2010, 2011 when we became like... I don't even know how it happened.
I think we were doing videos together. We were talking about the book, and we kind of coming closer.
I think it was the book because you bought it, you reviewed it, and so when you reviewed it, we just kind of started talking back and forth, and we're like, hey, we like the same stuff, and it just kind of grew.
Yeah, and I think what happened then, for in terms of what I know, is like we both kind of went into that personal life stuff where I stopped doing a lot of videos, you stopped your video production a lot, and I want to know what happened in like the year that we didn't speak that much, because I knew you were doing some writing. You uploaded a couple of things about like maybe a pink ninja and different stuff like that, and until we get to the comic that you published now, I want to know like what were you doing in that year?
Yeah. All right, so, and by the way, guys, this is probably going to be like a supersized special.
Yeah.
Just because I want you guys, for people who don't know me or anything, to get a good sense of me and just all the writing and the books.
Yeah, and I think there's because this is your first published comic book, there is a lot of backstory to how you got here.
Yeah, and it's just fun. It's just fun. We like talking to each other also.
Yeah, man.
So, basically, I started kicking around a bunch of ideas. I got this idea for so I went to HeroesCon.
Yeah.
That's the thing, is I went to HeroesCon during that was 2011. Yeah, I remember distinctly. I'm starting to remember things now. That the last year of 2011. I go to HeroesCon, and I did a bunch of videos from HeroesCon.
Yeah.
Because me and Christina went, and she held the camera, and we just walked around. What I like about those videos is that a bunch of times when you see videos from a convention, it's either interviews or it's just somebody after the end of the day going, hey, so I had a great time at the con, and,
Yeah.
So I really wanted to capture the feel of walking on the convention floor, of just seeing these cool random books, because it was my first time.
Yeah.
So I was experiencing these things too. And so that is where I met Justin for the first time.
Justin Cristelli, is it?
Justin Cristelli of the Red Knight fame of Primal Paper Comics. And that is where I was kind of not first introduced, because he was doing videos about his comic. His comic had 3 issues, I think, by then.
Yeah.
And so, but I hadn't bought any of them yet. So I go there, I meet him, we meet, I buy the issues, and I also meet Bob France, writer of the 41 for Primal Paper Comics. Mm-hmm. And I meet him, and so during that time, I'm like really, really thinking about this comic book thing.
Like it's becoming more of a reality, do you think?
Because a lot of the people that I'm watching on YouTube are starting to move there. Eric was talking about doing a comic book.
Yeah.
Real Man Up did a comic book. So I was like, because I like Denny Decatur, I had a lot of fun doing that, but I was like, I was really into comic books at that time. I was following all the news websites. I was doing, my head was full comic books. There was a long time where I went without reading novels.
Yeah, and then also the indie swing was coming back round. I mean,
because Image.
Sorry.
Image was I was gonna say Image was getting the high profile creators. Image started getting like Invincible and Walking Dead got really big. That was around the time when the TV show started.
Yeah,
Because Walking Dead was around for like 100 issues before the TV show came out, almost 100.
Yeah,
it was probably like 50 or it was high. But anyway, and then the Walking Dead TV show came out, and Image kind of got a new creative boost because all these high-profile creators from Marvel and DC were doing books at Image.
Yeah, and there was a lot of creators that were just really pushing the create your own like indie books, like Mark Miller with his book that I don't quite remember the name of, and it didn't do too well, but it was basically like Shazam, where it was a kid who turned into a big guy. Supreme, the Supreme book was coming out around about
Nemesis.
that time.
Oh yeah, before that was Nemesis. Remember his Batman?
Yeah. Bad Batman.
Oh no, Kick-Ass also was coming out, and the movie was coming out. So it was around that time when independent comics were being transformed into movies and TV shows.
Yeah, so it seems like a real thing.
Yeah. So I was just like, all right. So I got a couple of ideas. One of them was called Loverboy, which I still am sitting on. I still really like. Justin Jordan, actually, the writer of The Strange Town and Luther Strode.
Yep.
And he's written some stuff for DC. Too. He's writing Green Lantern New Guardians right now.
Yeah, I think we talked about that in the podcast on Man of Fire.
Yeah, but I showed him the script for that. He really liked it. So that really got me buzzing about it. So I was at that point where I did a couple videos going, hey guys, can I find who wants to be an artist?
Yeah.
And I got nothing. That was literally just my issue for that 2 to 3 year period. Was just I could never find anybody.
It is the thing though. Is like with comic books, the advantage you have to writing comic books is you get to write in the serialized manner that people really like. I mean, it's something that a lot of novelists don't get to do much because like novel magazines, they don't really exist that much. So as a comic book writer, you get to convey your story in these small issues. Kind of like a TV show. But the problem is that you have to have an artist that really sees your work for what it is and really improves on it, and I think that's sometimes hard to come by, especially if you're an indie creator, especially
when you're Jon Johnsick, nobody who is just doing, and I didn't know the places to look yet. Tumblr wasn't really that big then. I didn't really start getting into Tumblr until like 2013 maybe. And Twitter wasn't even as big as it is now.
Yeah, I mean, everyone has a Twitter now.
Yeah, back then, like, only a few people kind of had Twitters, and people were just starting to kind of, like, the general public was just starting to get into Twitter. Vine happened, Tout happened, like, all these other little places happened.
So I think you were just kind of, like, shouting out into the YouTube void, asking for an artist.
Yeah, and a lot of people were kind of, like, away from YouTube. At least the comic book scene got very dry.
Yeah, it kind of got settled, I think. I mean, Eric went away for a long time because he was just personal stuff and just people weren't responding anymore. Geekvolution moved into more of a video production thing. I think they turned their videos into more of a show as opposed to videos. And I think that the only one who really held on was Justin Cristelli, because he was just that entertaining. You know, he could just sit on his couch and talk for ages, and people would just enjoy it.
And there was Comic News with Duke and Manos.
Yeah, man.
Which that was even a little bit before that. That was even like 2010 probably when that got big.
Yeah, so I think the problem that you hit the nail on the head there with a lot of people who want to start comics is just like a lot of people have ideas and they like writing, but they just don't know artists. And a lot of artists, want to create their own stuff, so they have their own ideas. So it was kind of hard for anyone to find artists there that would work with them. So you're trying to get Loverboy off the ground. What are some of the other ideas you had at that point? Had you thought of the Monogamous Adventures?
That came in 2013. This is like 2012.
Okay.
So Loverboy came out. I was working on some other. I was like kind of randomly would write like a little bit of something and then erase it. I have like a couple of ideas from back then. I was working on one called Bastard.
Okay.
Which was about like the clone of the greatest superhero in the world's dead son.
Man.
Comes to visit his dad, and he just wants to know his dad. I'm gonna completely spoil the book because I'm never gonna write it.
So it's kind of like Superboy.
It's literally Superboy if it was very Machiavellian and very like, we don't know if he's a good guy or bad guy, the son. And we don't really find out until the end of the series.
Okay.
And then it's supposed to be kind of a shocker, he's kind of a bad guy.
Ah, okay.
He, like, the dad dies, the superhero dad dies, and everyone's trying to figure out who did it. Everyone suspects the son, but the son does some great, amazing, tricky stuff, and everyone is like, no, he didn't do it. You know, because him and the dad actually grow fond of each other and grow together away from that that kind of like
the suspicion.
Suspicion, yes, that's the word I was looking for.
Yeah.
And then he just kills him. It's very Macbeth, I think, like
okay.
Hamlet, something like Hamlet, kind of like superhero stuff.
So you've got a couple of ideas, and so what then inspires? How do we get to the monogamous adventures of Edward and Pepper?
So I graduated and I moved to Tuscaloosa.
Okay.
Which is where the University of Alabama is.
Which is also one of the funniest named places in the world.
Tuscaloosa, yes. There's some other funny names in Alabama. We're gonna have to just sit down and talk about them one day, and how people pronounce them too is, it's horrible. But so I moved there, and around that time, DC has started to kind of wear on me. Yeah. They started the New 52. They had kind of like started crushing like every single relationship and thing that I ever liked.
Yeah, I think around there you can hear me and you separately and together complain about how they were just slowly taking love out of the comics, which is like not love not necessarily love in the sense of romantic love, but love in the sense of family, romantic, friends, just everything. Yeah. It was just all about the fights. It was all about the fights and all about the who's got the coolest suits and stuff like that.
And that was what inspired me to write Edward and Pepper, because I'm still in a great relationship that makes me happy, and I just was just like, why? I don't understand why people have to do this. And some of my TV shows that I was watching started doing the same thing, where they started breaking people up. And I was just like, you know what? I'm just going to write a comic that shows you people how wrong you are.
You know, it was kind of inspired by you kind of just angry at the fact that everyone was giving up on relationships. Yeah,
and I was like, no. What's love got to do? Everything.
Yeah. So tell me about the first draft of the Monogamous Adventures then, because I know this is something that you really took care with, you edited a lot, you've shown to a lot of people. So what was the first draft compared to what the final result was like?
The first, you know how I'm extremely great at dialogue, as we've talked about this entire time? I was having a rough day. I was really trying to, I just wasn't grooving, and for some reason I was being unrealistic.
Yeah.
Hey babe, hey baby, how's it going, baby? Baby. Literally, I think they said baby 25 times. It was horrible. And I wrote it and I showed it to my wife, and she's just like, what is this?
She's like, how many times have you called me babe in the last year?
Yeah, she's like, okay, look, just they're supposed to be real people, right? Well, how do we talk to each other?
Yeah.
And I was just like, how do we talk to each other? and then that's how it kind of came about. That's how a lot of the dialogue was just kind of ripped from my memory. And I was just like, okay, now... And then after that, I was able to kind of okay, so these are these characters.
So you understood the characters more?
Yeah, I just had to kind of get a feel for who are... Because at first I was just like, Edward and Pepper. Okay, there are two people who are in a relationship. But what's Pepper like? What's Edward like? What do they like? What do they dislike? What is their personality? And I didn't have any of that yet. So if I have a piece of advice for anyone who starts writing, get your characters.
Yeah.
And I don't mean just design and name them, but really, what douchey band does your character like? Just anything that can help with the small talk, because that's one thing that I love. People, I think some people kind of you talk a lot about how you really like my dialogue and stuff.
Yeah.
And I think I could pull, if I wanted to, I could pull Kevin Smith, where I just want to write a movie where it's just two people kind of talking the entire time.
Yeah.
Because that's just the kind of stuff I like writing. I like writing about how Edward and Pepper are complaining about Barq's root beer because it makes their stomachs hurt. It's just weird stuff like that people talk about, real people talk about.
Yeah, I think that the the way you did it was risky, where it was like a trial by fire, where you wrote the characters and then you figured out who the characters were. I think the best way to do it would be, as you said, to figure out the characters before. A good example of this, which is still relates to you, this is a bit later down in the timeline, we'll get to this, but when we were in production for the film, we were writing the script for Edward and Pepper, the short film. I was like, I want to know everything about the characters. I want you to send me a sheet that has all the stuff about the characters.
That was fun for me too, because I got to kind of get more into there. Because I was like, wow, I've never really had to do anything like this before. Let me actually sit down and figure this out. But yeah, that is a little bit later.
Yeah, and I do think that most of the people that I've ever said that to, you know, I don't say it to a lot of people, but like when I'm working with people and they have influence on the story, I'm like, okay, what do you think of the character? Write this down. And they just like, what? Why do you need to know like their favorite food? And it's just like really, you need to know your characters. You need
a fully fleshed character so that they are relatable, so that they can be. But yeah, so let's get off that tangent. Basic guys, know your characters, know every little facet and every little deep dark secret that they hold. Because even something as that wasn't what I was expecting means so much more. Means so much more than it could mean if a character has a deep backstory.
Yeah. So you finished. So let's skip ahead to when you finish the script for number one. You've got it to a point that you like, and you start looking for artists. How do you find Brandon Washington?
All right, so I went to at this point I knew all the sites. I went to Reddit.r/comic book collabs. I went to well, I'm gonna say Tumblr. Well, Tumblr. But I went to Reddit. I went to DeviantArt. Those are the first two places I attacked.
Yeah.
I just put out like some feelers. I got in contact with a couple of people. This is the first time I've ever been in contact with people, so I'm kind of talking back and forth, and guess what I'm running into?
What is it?
$80 a page. I'm a 17-year-old college student. You want me to pay you $80 a page? I understand being paid for your work. No, I completely understand. But isn't that a little unrealistic?
Yeah, and it's like it's the problem of like people, especially on the internet. It's like if they have a talent, they know that people need the talent. You know, you're a comic book writer. You're a comic book writer. You can't be a comic book writer and just do it yourself. You can be a comic book artist.
There are some people who are great at it, but not me, not Jonathan Johnsick.
Well, there's artists who can create comic books without being writers. They're not necessarily good comic books, but they can create them because they can draw. Whereas writers, all they can do is script it, and then it's up to the artist to create it. So they know that you need them. So you do get some of this where it's like, you're an indie creator without any money. That's cool. Pay me £80 a page.
Yeah, or 90. I even ran into an $100 a page.
Oh man.
And I was just like, so I went to Tumblr.
Yes.
I went into the search bar and just said comic book artist.
Yeah.
And so I was looking through the art, and I'm like, some of this is pretty all right. And then I found this one page, and I'm like, man, I'm really digging this stuff. It's got this kind of realistic feel to it, but with still being pretty out there. I'm gonna email this guy. He luckily, and I'm just another tip, another advice. All you artists out there, anyone who has a website, a web page, a Tumblr, a Twitter, whatever. Put your email on your stuff. I don't know how many people I said, hey, I really like your stuff, but I have no way to contact you. No way. I could leave a comment on your website that you're not going to look at for 5 months.
Oh, man. Or it's like, ask you a question.
Yeah, and it's like so many people who don't just don't understand, and it's like also... Putting your Twitter or just putting your Facebook is nice, but do you really want me making business stuff publicly?
Yeah.
I would want a private email or something, a private conversation, not something that anybody in the world can see.
Yeah, definitely.
So just, guys, put your emails on there. If you don't have an email, it's 2014, get an email. Gmail, it's incredibly easy. You can get a Gmail account in 2 seconds flat.
You can. And then you can ask your friends for their Gmail account and steal all the details like I did to John. So I find Brandon. He luckily has his email address. So I'm like, okay. I drafted an email. Had my wife look over it. She's like, that sounds good. I sent it, and he got back to me. And he basically was just like, send me a script. I'll look over it, and then we'll see what happens. I sent him a script. He liked it, and he just started working on it. And so
that was 2013.
And so began the adventures of creating the adventures of Edward and Pepper.
Yes. By the way, that title, I don't know how it came out. I don't know how it came about. It just came to me. I was like Edward. I was like, the character's name Edward Pepper. It's about them being in a relationship. I'm like, oh no, what? And then just like for some reason, monogamous adventures. And
I love it. Kind of sets the tone for the book where you just see the title, which is so long. It's like this title fills up the entire page, so it gives you this. It's like this good prejudice of the book. You're like, this is going to be a fun time, you know? It's like before you listen to the band, the Presidents of the United States of America, you already kind of know what band they're going to be like.
When you hear, Fall Out Boy. Oh, okay, well, they're probably going to be like some weird, like, 2006 punk rock kind of, like, thing. That's kind of what they are. Blink-182, you're like, all right, this is going to be some alternate alt-rock band. Yeah. And I think Sacramento St. Vincent Symphony. You know what they are. You know what you're gonna get.
So you start. Brandon starts.
We start emailing back and forth. He starts sending me some character sketches. Yeah. He's like, "What do you want to look like?" I'm like, "Well, Edward's kind of this hipster douchebag kind of looking guy, and Pepper is this like." They're both kind of hipstery, but they're both kind of very modern. I talked about like hair color and all that stuff, and he sent me the first character sketches. No, and I was blown the fuck away.
What were your initial reactions? Do you think they looked like what they looked like in your head, or were they better? Or
they were way better because in my head I didn't have a clear picture of who they were.
You had the personalities, but not what
I had their personalities, and I'm like, well, they're based off me and my wife, so I just kind of pictured them like us. Yeah. And they do actually look like us without him like ever really seeing a picture of my wife or me, really.
So you fit the characters fit, and so does Brandon go straight to work on the comic and penciling it in, or does he do more sketches first?
He does some more sketches. He does like a bunch of like head sketches and different hairstyles, and like all this stuff, and then he does some for Edward too. Edward's wearing like a Letterman jacket. He's like doing different outfits and stuff, and he's practicing with the stone stuff, and then he begins rough layouts.
So while Brandon is working on the drawing side of it, what were you doing to aid the creation of the comic?
As the drawing process, probably not from the beginning, but as the drawing process was going on, I was creating Facebook pages. I was thinking about... The Facebook page came even later. First, I was like, all right, how are we going to do this? And that was probably more so like a couple months later is when the Kickstarter happened.
The Kickstarter is something I wanted to talk to you about because it is so fundamental to... just the publicity of this book. It didn't have a huge following, but I think one of the things that really helped... We did get
over our amount.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that really helped the book in terms of not just money-wise, obviously money-wise with Kickstarter, but in terms of publicity as well, was when you launched the Kickstarter, it was a really good platform to be like, guys, this is serious. This isn't like all the videos I've made being like, can I have an artist? This isn't like Danny Decate, I'm self-publishing.
This is something that's happening.
Yeah, and here are the sketches to prove it. This is how much I need. I've budgeted.
My favorite thing about the Kickstarter is that we actually got a lot of retweets and a lot of like, I was like on comic, Facebook page called Comic Kick. I love the Facebook page because they just show off Kickstarters.
Yeah.
I went email and message crazy with just anybody. I was emailing people going like, oh, hey, I'd like, would you be able to check out my Kickstarter? You know, all that, you know, the normal stuff. And we got a lot of like, you know, people just kind of retweeting and like, you know, showing it on their page and like all this stuff.
Now, it was around about this time that you kind of, that I kind of kicked off your podcasting career. That is kind of
our first podcast, which is kind of hilarious because of how the story has kind of like, even the characters a little bit, and the story has kind of changed from my first idea of it.
Yeah, and I think one of the coolest things that came from this comic, if it isn't the comic itself, is you came onto the podcast and the idea was, let's promote the Kickstarter, let's get new fans of the comic in. But what ended up happening was people just started enjoying the podcast for what it is, and the dynamic of you and me, and they kind of saw the relationship. So then to add to acting, to add to reviewing, and
we
writing,
kind of skipped over that entire...
Oh yeah, the acting thing, we might have to go back.
The acting was just like, that was just high school acting. That wasn't really... Yeah. It's not really a big deal.
But to add to all the things, you started becoming more into YouTube again, I think, in a certain way. In a weird way that wasn't on your channel, but it was kind of... I
got more excited about collaborating and doing and creating. Like, I was listening to a lot of podcasts, too, at that time. There's still a bunch of like Let's Talk Comics is a really good podcast.
Yeah.
Straight Shoot is a wrestling podcast that I love. There's just a couple of podcasts, like I was getting back into podcasts, and I was like, I really want to do this because I had a lot of fun with that first podcast, just talking.
Yeah. So what was your experience with the Kickstarter then? Did you think it was a positive thing to do? Do you regret it at all?
I think a little bit of both.
Yeah.
I think it was a really good experience for me, just kind of like learning like how to like promoting and how to get in contact with people, and like kind of just what to share, what not to share,
plus you did raise money, so it showed that people were interested in your comic book.
And it also was kind of an affirmation like, hey, no. And it wasn't people I knew, which was the fun part.
Yeah.
Like besides you, but you'll always pay for my stuff. Even if I send it to you for free, you'll still pay for it.
Yeah, I gotta get that dialogue, man. I gotta get my fix in my veins. I watched every Kevin Smith movie. I need more. It's you, Hal Hartley, and Kevin Smith, and John Hughes. But now even he's gone.
Oh, I love me some. That is actually a lot of inspiration. John Hughes movies, huge inspiration on Edward and Pepper. Literally, issue 5 is Breakfast Club in space. So if you don't like that idea, you're going to hate my book.
Great promotion from Jon Johnsick.
Yeah, really? If you don't like it, then I'm sorry. Well, I've always had this idea that if you don't like this 3-part story arc, or if you don't like issue 5, then you might not just like my book. Because that's like almost the encompassing of like the type of book this is.
Yeah.
Issues 2 through 5. It's some of my favorite stuff. Already, you know, well, obviously every new issue has kind of, well, it's not even that. Every new issue is not really my new favorite thing.
Okay.
I love issue 4, because it just hits in a really like good place for me.
Yeah.
Just like emotionally and stuff. And issue 5 does that too, but issue 4 really just like the ending is kind of like, if you don't like this, then fuck you. Don't take it as an insult, people. I'm just being an asshole. But anyway,
so
Kickstarter.
The Kickstarter. So what were the negative points you saw from the Kickstarter then?
The kind of almost the obligation.
Okay.
Almost kind of the obligation of having to self-promote, which really sucks. It's taxing.
Yeah.
Especially if people don't get back to you and you're worrying. And with a website like Kickstarter, where if you don't make your goal, you're screwed.
Yeah.
It started to kind of wear on me a little bit. And then just having to send stuff out is kind of the worst thing.
Yeah.
Shipping sucks. And also when I feel bad because we're not ready yet. And it's been so long. We are kind of like, I've sent out PDFs to everybody. I have the posters. I just need to get physical copies.
Yeah.
But even that is it's just a little hard, and it's like definitely a learning process, but it's taxing sometimes. It's just trying to get all this stuff together for everybody.
So if you, again, one of the purposes of this show that you like to do is to inspire new creators. Would you say that Kickstarter is a good idea to go down, but you need to be more prepared, or would you just skip it completely?
I would say that it's a really good if you think you need the money. If you need the money, it's 100% a good place to go. But if you think you can do it without the money, try it without the money first.
Okay.
And I would say if you already kind of have a fan base, perfect. If you don't, I would say also try Indiegogo before Kickstarter. Indiegogo, you can keep the money no matter what.
Yeah, that's been a big friend.
The thing about Indiegogo is that it doesn't get as much traffic as Kickstarter, but if you can create that traffic.
Yeah.
It goes to you to create that traffic. Even on Kickstarter, it goes to you to create that traffic. So I would say if you're going to, go to Indiegogo first. And also, don't hamper yourself with your rewards. Something I had to learn is that, you want to get those people in. You want to draw them in, so you give them a shit ton of rewards. Okay, smart guy. Now you have to make and ship those rewards. And by that time, that money that you raised for your comic, whoop, you used it all just to send out all your rewards to everybody.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the issue like I've ran into, is that I used a lot of the money to create and ship and do all this stuff.
Yeah.
So it's like I didn't even really get to use any of it. Just the 20 people who, got the book kickstarted get to kind of experience the comic.
Yeah, and I think it's an awkward process, but it's something that some people had to do, and even though it was annoying and hard to do, it did allow you to pay Brandon, who's doing outstanding work on the book,
yeah.
And deserved some compensation for that.
Yeah.
So the book took a long time.
Yeah.
It was an indie comic. It was for no one was being paid per page.
Literally,
or anything.
it was November and December of last year is when I started the Kickstarter.
Yeah.
Just now is when the book is released digitally.
So we're still working on the print copy.
We're still working on the print copy right now. I have to go and talk to one of the printers in my area, because I could try and use Kablam.
Yeah.
But I'd have to get it shipped to my house, and then if I could get it for cheaper from a printer in my area, I just have to go up there, bring one of the comics or a Primal Paper comic, and be like, hey, this is about what I want. Could you guys do that? I'm also trying to format like a inside. I've gotten the title page. We got a title page and everything. I'm
awesome.
trying to do the back inside cover and the back cover right now.
Cool.
So I got to format that stuff. I didn't realize.
Sorry.
I was just say I didn't realize this is a thing to learn too. When you're printing things, multiples of 4s.
Is it?
Remember that when you have a comic book, you have a outside cover, an inside cover, the 21, 22 pages, and then a back inside cover and a back outside cover.
Yeah.
So you have to. I didn't realize that. So Jeff Hewitt, who writer of the ends for Primal Paper Comics, he was just like, "Hey, so you realize you have to get you need like 2 more pages, right?" And I was like, "Why?" He's just like, "Your back cover," and I was like, "Shit." But I got an idea for the back cover, which is one of Cameron's favorite pieces of art I've ever Brandon's done for the book.
Which one's that?
The sarcasm
Yes.
as the back cover.
Yeah.
I think that'd be really cool.
It would be cool.
And then the back inside cover, I think I'm drafting a letter about like how the book came to be.
Awesome. So let's talk a little bit about the digital copy first, because obviously we've talked about how the print copy isn't quite ready yet.
Yeah.
So the digital copy, is it up for sale now? Can people purchase it? How do people get it?
All you have to do, so actually before that we kind of have to talk about how it got to where it is now.
Yes, actually, I completely forgot. We were talking about Primal Paper earlier. We did the whole build-up.
Yeah. So, as we were talking about how, like, Cameron kind of kickstarted me wanting to do podcasts.
Yeah.
And I was like, man, I really want to talk to other indie creators and start, like, kind of promote their work, promote my own work, and just talk about, like, creating.
Yeah.
So that's where this show right now, the show you're listening to, where I am the guest and Cameron is the host, came from. It came from me talking to Cameron on Men on Fire Films podcast and going, I love podcasting. I want to do this.
Yeah.
And so Straight Shoot by Aubrey Citizen, he does it after it's a wrestling podcast.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
No worries, man. You okay?
Yeah, I just did a little hiccup. Sorry.
Oh, okay. You died again.
I died again. Great. But so that podcast, that show is a podcast and a Google Hangouts show.
Yeah.
Right after Raw, he does a Google Hangouts call, and that's it. And I was like, oh, it'd be really easy to just do a Google Hangouts call because that would upload to my YouTube page, and I could do it live and get questions and stuff too. So the first person I ever did it with was Todd Black, writer of The Guardians. The Guardians is a book that is not under Primal Paper Comics. It is under Vince White and the Willpower.
The Powerverse, as it's called.
The Powerverse, as it's called, yeah. Guardians is in the Powerverse. It's not affiliated with Primal Paper.
Okay.
So I talked to him. What sucked is that the Google Hangouts call, for some reason, didn't do the video thing.
Oh, okay.
If anyone's ever been on Google Hangouts, when someone talks, their face is supposed to show.
Yeah.
For some reason, it only showed me the entire time. So I had to create an audio version, which is extremely difficult of it, because Google doesn't like you creating audio versions of their videos.
Yeah.
So I had to do that, and I kind of uploaded it to a random podcast website, which is, it's there. The thing is I don't have the money or anything to upload to make the memory and the bitrate and all that stuff higher.
Yeah. That's why we stick to YouTube as well. We can't afford hosting.
Yeah, exactly. I can't host anything. So after that, I kind of got in Oh, I totally forgot this. I don't think you know this part.
Really?
When I was living in Tuscaloosa, because this all was happening at Tuscaloosa too. When I was doing most of this, the first 3 podcasts, Conversing with Creators, were in Tuscaloosa. Wow.
Oh, man.
So basically, Vince White did this thing where on the mobile version of his website, you can call him.
Really?
Yeah, the day that he did that, I was like, all right, I'm going to do this. So I called. Because the Kickstarter was still running. That was back when the Kickstarter was running.
Yeah.
So I called him, and he was like, hello, Vince White. Whatever, like.
It's so smooth.
It's so smooth, I know.
I love Vince White. I actually had I have a separate story about him. I don't want to interrupt this because it is about you, obviously. But I had an interaction with Vince White a couple of times, and he's just like the smoothest guy ever.
Hello. But so I call him, and I was just like, hey, so I got this book, and we just talked. I talked about how I've been following Primal Paper, how, I, like, back when the Skyrocket by, like, Mike Federale and all that crap. So I was just like, yeah. And I was talking about my book, and he looked at the Kickstarter, and he was like, dude, this is some really good stuff. Yeah. And I was like, thank you. And he was just like, yeah, man, keep me posted, keep me updated on it. And I'd really love it if you would, when you're finished with it, send it to us.
Oh, man, that's awesome.
Yeah. So that is how that happened. So then later I do Conversing with Creators with Todd. And then after that I do one with Bob France, which is probably maybe my favorite one.
Oh, I'm offended.
Oh, well, okay. Out of the comic book related ones.
Oh, okay, so now I'm just a video creator.
You're my favorite filmmaker I've ever talked to.
But anyway, of all the filmmakers.
So my Kickstarter got funded. We got like $40 over. Nice. Which is pretty cool. So then I talked to like Bob, and we did our interview, and I talked to Justin. So I interviewed 2 out of the 5 Primal Paper guys.
Okay.
And then I moved back to Obliga. In the time that's taken for this comic to come out, I've moved 3 times.
Jeez.
Yes.
So since Christmas, basically, when the Kickstarter ended.
Oh, even before that, because we were working on it before the Kickstarter opened.
Yeah.
So we were getting rough layouts and stuff before that. So, it's been a while.
It was
probably summer, really. It was summer of last year. that we started. I think I sent the email, and he started sending me like character sketches and stuff.
So you've been doing conversing with creators, and it's put you in contact with a lot of the Primal Paper guys. You know, you've done a lot of other things, but mostly it was Primal Paper guys, and then obviously there was the Me episode, which is by far the best.
It is,
But so you already have established a relationship with Primal Paper Comics, which is
I met them at HeroesCon. I buy their stuff, and I also interviewed those guys.
So what's the point where you're like, okay, I'm going to like talk to them about this comic book now, and I'm gonna ask them about it?
Yeah. Well, first, Bob's just like, you need to submit wherever. Just submit to any place you can.
Okay. Because
you need to get used to hearing no, and you just need to try. You know. So I submitted to Dark Horse. I submitted to Image. I submitted to Red 5 Comics. I submitted to Action Lab, you know?
Everything under the sun.
Basically.
All the comic books that you find in, like, the bucket in a comic book store.
So, basically, I didn't hear anything back from anybody.
Yeah.
You know, and that is the comic book equivalent of no. And then there's this company called Alterna Comics. I submitted to them, and the guy, Peter Cementi, he's a really cool dude. He talked to me, and he's just like, hey, I really like the book. I just don't kind of care. Because the first issue is very much, you just dropped in. It's just a day in their life. And I think he kind of wanted more of a beginning.
An origin story.
Yeah, more stuff like that. And he's like, I'd like to see the book maybe in a different format, you know?
Okay.
He's like, I like the book. I would just like to see it differently. And I was like, oh, well, this is what we got. It's taking a year for this, so...
Yeah.
So I was just like, okay, whatever. I did interview some of the Alterna Comics. Yeah, I interviewed Brad Burdick, who does this book called Billy the Pyro for Alterna Comics.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so that's kind of where that came to. See, I use my show as a way to get in contact with independent companies.
Spoilers.
That's the secret to Conversing with Creators.
Well, now I'm the host, so let's go find some filmmakers.
Yeah. So
I'd really like to edit your film.
Yeah. But so after that, I kind of got no from everybody, and I was like, okay, we finally have something done.
Yeah.
We have the 21 pages. We didn't have everything then yet, but we had basically the story and the cover.
Yeah.
So I sent it to Jeff Hewitt and Justin Cristelli and Bob France and Vince White and Forrester Randlett.
You basically rained on Primal Paper. You said it every writer.
Well, I sent it to Justin, Jeff, and Bob. Because those are the only guys I could really get. And those are the guys that you can get in contact with. Vince and Forrester fall off the map sometimes.
Yeah.
They do. But
they also write a lot.
Yeah, they are very busy. Vince is like, he's running around doing museums and all this other stuff.
Yeah, and he's also like, he does like different concepts for Willpower, which I really like. Like, he did this What If Willpower was on Cartoon Network, which I thought was really cool. And he did a Willpower theme song.
Yeah, so he's a marketing machine.
Yeah.
And Forrester letters. He does a lot of lettering work. Yeah. He does a lot of coloring work. So he's working on like other books too. But those are the only three people I really knew to get in contact with because I had talked to them. And so I sent it to them. They're like, all right, we'll get back to you in like a week or two. They did Wizard World that week.
Yeah.
And this is like, a couple of weeks ago, not even that long ago. They're just like, all right, we'll get back to you like a week after this because we're really busy right now. And so I get Bob sends me some notes. Jeff sends me some notes.
Yep.
They're just like, hey, here's some stuff that you could fix. I really like the book. I really like it, but here's some things to make it better.
Okay.
I changed those things. And then I woke up one morning. I was going to take a shower. I got a message on Facebook from my phone that says Primal Chat, and it says, "Welcome, John." And I was like, "Whoa, ah."
So you get the message.
Yeah.
And do they? What do they then go on to explain, or did you faint?
I still survived. I still lived. But they basically, they're just like Forrester, and people were like, "Congrats, yay!" But so then it was just like, all right. So they showed me the cover with the Primal Paper Comics logo.
That's awesome.
And I was like, awesome. And they're just like, all right, so the book's going to be up on the website in a couple of days, whatever. Then we'll make a big announcement, which if you follow Primal Paper Comics, they've done all that stuff. Yay. If you haven't, go to their Facebook page.
Yeah.
And then that is how the book
became
basically on part of Primal Paper Comics and on their website.
So now you are under an official publishing company, and it is a publishing company that has already housed YouTubers. I mean, Vince White does YouTube videos, but most popular, Manos, Justin Cristelli, he came from YouTube. He got his fan base in YouTube, and he was the main reason most YouTubers know about Primal Paper, and arguably what a lot of their audience comes from. What was it like knowing that this company that you'd heard of and you had interactions with all this time, that you eventually ended up with them?
It was pretty it was kind of still a little I had to trying to get used to the idea.
Yeah.
Because it was very much I almost didn't expect it to happen.
Yeah.
Because it was taking a little while for me to hear back, and I was just getting worried, and I was just like, oh great, these guys, they're saying no, they're saying no, they don't, they just told me they liked my book just to tell me that.
Yeah. So
it's still kind of a little shock, but it's super cool. Me and Brandon have talked about how it's nice because it's kind of a small, it's 5 guys right now, 6 including, or 7 including us.
Yeah.
And it's nice because it's it's small enough so that we get spotlighted, but also they do cons. They promote each other, they do conventions, and they get some sales.
Yeah, and I do think that one of the craziest things about you ending up with them is there are comic book publishers, indie comic book publishers that are more popular, that do better business, that are more commercial, Boom Studios and stuff.
I wish Boom had submissions. Boom doesn't.
But it's Boom is the studio that is quite, it's got a lot of money behind it.
Yeah.
But Primal Paper was this weird thing where it's it's small and it's intimate, and there's no business people behind it. They're all creators and they all help each other out. And it was this thing that existed for years within the YouTube community because of Manos and because of Vince White, because they were promoting on YouTube, and they were actually people that we knew before they started Primal Paper, and people that we knew before they joined Primal Paper. And it was weird because it was this is this company that isn't that massive, but it's so helpful to each other, they don't just publish books, they advertise each other's books, and they seem like friends, they talk to each other. And it's crazy that you ended up with them, because I think it's one of the best places for a book like The Monogamous Adventures of Edward Pepper, where it is challenging the industry. With this book you're challenging the industry's idea of relationships in comics, and it's cool that you ended up with a publishing company that also has a comic book that is challenging the idea of too many superheroes in a universe, like the Red Knight and different things like that. It's cool that you ended up with this. It's kind of the perfect home for the book.
Yeah. I couldn't have said it better.
I think what I really want to know now is, what are the future plans with not just Edward and Pepper, but with your comic book career in general?
So I know, not loaded at all.
Sorry.
So we're doing more. This book is going for as long as we can. I have long form plans.
Yeah.
For the book, we're gonna get to a point where we're doing, where we're physical copies all the time.
Okay.
And we're gonna be doing some. I'm probably gonna be going to Heroes Con with Justin and Jeff.
Nice.
Or just Justin, I'm not sure. We're going to have a table. I might even in November be hopping down to Richmond and going to Richmond, Virginia Con. So it's a 9-hour drive for me, but
it's worth it.
It'll be fun. They have a panel, actually, Primal Paper Comics, but I think it just might be them.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's it's whatever, but I'd be able to get kind of my face there and be able to kind of see some people and meet some people and kind of, be like, oh, hey, here's the new book, So that's kind of what's going on. I want to do more of the book. I want to work on some other projects. I got some other stuff on the brain that I'm working on. And I want to just kind of be sending stuff out. You know, I want to like show, you know, just like, oh, hey, here's this book that I'm working on, you know, and people, and just kind of get some more recognition.
What's your stance on reviews? Now your book, the digital copy, we'll talk about this way more at the end, but it is available. People can buy it. It's only 99 cents. It's 60p if you live in the UK. What is your stance on reviews? Do you want people to review and discuss this book, or would you rather them just read it?
Dude, I can't. This whole video has kind of talked about how YouTube, the internet, has kind of like helped create this book and like just kind of careers.
Yeah.
And so I want video reviews. I want print. Like I want like blogs. I want just someone on Twitter going at Jon Johnsick, hey, I really like the book.
Yeah.
You know, I just want people talking about it. And I you know, even if a video review goes like, oh, hey, so I read issue 1 of this book. It was all right. You know, it wasn't really my favorite thing in the world. I don't know if I'll keep up with it, but you know, this is kind of what it's about. This is what I didn't like about it. Like, you know, I just want people to talk about it and to give me. This is my first ever published comic.
Yeah.
I published a book before. We talked about how that went. But this is really my first outing. This is me going, hey, I'm a writer. I'm a comic book writer. You know, just this is who I am. Just yeah. I want you to look. I want you to read it. I want you to tell me how much I am not like Brian Bendis. And I'll be like, okay, you're reading an independent comic. Of course I'm not like Brian Bendis, but... You know what I mean? I love
the idea where they're just like, Jon Johnsick, I bet he's nothing like Brian Michael Bendis. I love this character you've created where it's everything that isn't Michael Bendis.
Isn't that like he's just like he only reads X-Men and Guardians of the Galaxy
and Avengers events.
Yeah, he has like all his old Avenger and Brian Michael Bendis trades on his shelf.
Oh man, what was that Bendis comic?
You're gonna be specific, way more specific.
Yeah, there's too many. It was like a creator-owned one. It doesn't matter. What I wanted to say was so you want people to discuss it, you want people to review it, you want to talk about it. What is your hopes with this comic? Where do you want to take it? How do you want to take the audience? You know, do you want to make them laugh? Do you want to make them cry? All of the above.
I'm gonna take them on an emotional roller coaster. That's gonna explore family. That's gonna explore friendship. That's gonna explore hate and like, is it even worth it?
Yeah.
You know, I just want people to. These characters are going to grow and they're going to change, and I mean that in all aspects. Their hairstyles are going to change. They're going to grow older. You know, what I'm trying to position this book as. It's a slice of life book that happens to be in a superhero world.
Okay.
You know, it's not a superhero book. They don't wear costumes. They don't have arch enemies. They're not going out on patrol. You know. But it's a book about these two people and their lives. And it just so happens to be in a superhero world where they, you know, sometimes have to fight crime and sometimes have to do stuff.
Awesome. Now, so again, let's just go over this a bit more. So if people want to buy the digital copy, obviously they want to get in contact with you. What are some of the ways that people can get in contact with you?
Well, I have a Twitter.
Yep.
At Jon Johnsick, JonJohnsick. Follow me. You can just message me. There's also the Monogamous Adventures of Edward and Pepper Facebook page. Facebook.com/Edward and Pepper. I'm so happy I got that URL because it's so easy to remember.
There's some couple that are hoping to plan their wedding, and they type down in there like Edward and Pepper. They're like, no,
someone got it.
The stupid comic book.
And then they buy it, and they love it.
Yeah, they're like, this is pretty good.
They're like, this is about us. Oh, honey. But you could do that. You can also, I mean, if you don't want to go through Primal Paper, you could just contact me and say, hey, can I buy a copy of your book? Just give me your email address, and I will send you a PayPal invoice. And then I'll just email you it. It just depends on what you want to do. If you want to buy it through Primal Paper, and check out their other books, you can. But if you just want to go through me, that's fine too. I have the book,
I'm sure there will be lots of links in the description to all the different ways that you can get Jon's things. Now, what are your plans in the future regarding not comic books, in creating other things? Do you plan to do more podcasts? Do you plan to carry on conversing with creators after I've given it back to you?
Yes, I definitely want to. I got a bunch of people in the queue. I'm going to get Brandon on the show.
Nice.
And me and Brandon, we've really been talking a lot lately. We went through the entire second issue, just like page by page, talking about stuff, talking about like, ooh, what could this look like? Oh, hey, why don't we do this? Maybe we do this. He's really excited about doing this book and kind of pushing his art to the next level. Yeah. And I'm also trying to do the same thing with my writing.
Awesome. We hope to hear more from you on this show, Jon, as you will probably be the host for most of it.
This is
meta. This is crazy.
Oh, I love it.
Is there anything else you want to say about creating in general? Is there anything you want to talk to about people who maybe are hoping to create their own comics and are at the stage that you were back in 2012, where you didn't have an artist and you didn't have a script and you didn't quite know what was going on?
Yeah, it's not easy, I thought it was kind of going to be easy, but if you just keep trying at it, I mean, dude, you could do whatever the hell you want.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the amazing thing about where we live. The barrier to entry for comic books, I'm going to give you a grand secret right now. If you write a comic book, you're a comic book writer.
Nice.
Bam. Bada boom. Kelly Sue DeConnick said it perfectly. The writer of Captain Marvel, Pretty Deadly, Bitch Planet. She said, start as early as you can so that you can get your bad issues out of the way. No matter what, you're going to write bad issues. Nobody's perfect. But if you get those out of the way early, then when you're 22, you're going to be writing like masterful, epic strokes.
You're going to be Matt Fraction.
You're going to be Matt Fraction. I'm 19, I'm going to be 20 next year. And I got my first issue out.
Yeah.
If this is the worst issue that I ever write, think about 3 years from now.
See, I'm not sure if I agree with her talking about the first issues being the worst, because she must not have read Pikachu Goes to the Future.
It was really epic. Oh my god. It just, those 7 pages were...
Maybe one day Nintendo will give you the rights.
Oh god, I wish I could get the rights to Wario. I did a video about a Wario comic I would write, and I just have this idea of writing a comic about shitty little Wario, and like how he doesn't want to be shitty Wario anymore.
Jon, thank you very much for coming onto your own show and talking about your
Thank you for having me on my show.
I thoroughly enjoyed interviewing you, and I'm excited to see where this comic and all your other comics will go in the future. If you want to keep up with Jon, obviously, as he said, at Jon Johnsick on Twitter, the / Edward and Pepper on Facebook. He's also got a YouTube channel, which you're watching now. So subscribe, like, and comment below any questions you have for him. I'm sure he'll answer. And if you want to get in contact with your lovely host this evening, me, Cameron Morris, I'm usually hanging around the YouTube channel Man on Fire Films, youtube.com/Man on Fire Films. Jon pops in for a quick visit every now and then.
I pop in a lot. I'm probably going to be popping in a little bit more over there, but we'll talk about that a little bit later. Before we do our big closing spiel,
yeah, man,
I think the lovely viewers who probably listened for almost 2 hours, it's getting there, would like a little bit of what the next issue is going to hold.
Oh man, exclusive! This feels like the Man on Fire Films podcast.
Exclusive to my Conversing with Creator show. Issue 2 of Edward and Pepper's kick-starts the 3-part, issues 2, issues 3, issue 4. Big, not event, but it's just a big deal. It's called You Can't Get Blood Out of Stone. 3 parts. Goes through 3 issues. All right? We got problems with Pepper. We got problems with Edward. We got weird dogs. We got demonic creatures. We got past revelations. And we got tampons.
Oh, man. There's everything you've ever wanted in a story.
Everything.
Can I just say, I have seen the very first concept art for issue 2, and it is demonic, and it will make you sick, and it will make you excited in the same time.
And also one of the Kickstarter backers, Roland, who paid $50 so that he could name a character in the book, shows up in the first issue.
Oh, man.
Yep.
Issue 1 or issue 2?
Issue 2. Issue 2. The first page. We get to see Roland from the great... I think he's from Wales, actually.
Are you serious?
Yeah, I think so.
Damn! I wanted to be the first one.
Yeah. You come in issue 3.
No way!
Yeah.
Oh, man, this is going to be good.
And then issue 5, and then, the rest of the book. But
So we're looking forward to it. And thank you for the sneak preview, John. It feels weird. I want to say goodbye, but you're kind of going to be on this show forever. So until I see you again.
until everyone gets to hear the sweet, smooth stylings of Jon Johnsick and Cameron Morse again. Good night, good luck, and have a blast.
Yeah, good night, everybody.